Welcome to Midnight Narratives, where the shadows whisper and the past never truly dies. I'm glad you've found your way here, though some stories aren't meant to be heard alone. Tonight we head to Grafton, New South Wales, where beneath the Jacaranda blossoms lie secrets far darker than they seem. Settle in and don't turn out the lights just yet. The Wall of Names. It started, innocently enough, with the wallpaper in the spare room. The couple, Max and Elise, had recently purchased a charming but weathered Federation home on the southern edge of Grafton. It sat not far from the Clarence River, cloaked in overgrown wisteria and shaded by a crooked jacaranda that hadn't bloomed properly in years. The house needed work, which they'd expected. They were handy and hopeful, excited to turn this forgotten place into a forever home. But from the beginning, something was off about the spare room. It was cold, noticeably colder than the rest of the house, even in the stifling Grafton summer. Their tools would go missing and reappear in odd spots, under the bed frame, behind curtains, once even suspended from the ceiling fan cord as though delicately placed there. The wallpaper on the western wall bubbled no matter what they tried. Steamers, scrapers, glue softener. The same patch kept peeling back overnight, always exposing the same jagged tear underneath. They assumed moisture damage and resolved to strip the whole thing. Elise was the one who found it first. Beneath layers of outdated floral wallpaper and brittle plaster was a smooth wooden panel. But it wasn't blank. It was covered, etched, and scribbled every inch. With names. All girls. Hundreds of them. First names only, some in perfect cursive, others scrawled like graffiti. Next to each name was a number, always between 9 and 19, and a date. Spanning from 1953 to 1971. Some names were repeated, like Lorna and Bettina, with new dates beside them. Some names were scratched out. Some had little symbols beside them, crosses, strange marks. They stood in silence for several minutes before Max muttered, "This isn't a renovation, this is a message board." They took photos and began researching the house. That's when they uncovered its history. From 1952 to 1974, the property had operated as part of St Agatha's Industrial School for Girls, a government-run institution for wayward and unplaced youth. It was shut down following allegations of severe abuse, solitary confinement and disappearances. The government report was never released to the public. When they contacted the local historical society, an older man named Leonard returned their email almost instantly. He asked to come see the wall in person. When he arrived, he was visibly shaken. He ran his hands across the names like someone touching old gravestones. He said his aunt had worked as a cleaner there in the 1960s and had told him whispered stories of the girls in the crawl space. When he asked what that meant, she said only, "They're the ones who didn't behave, and they don't leave." The couple decided to leave the wall exposed as a sort of memorial, but strange things began to happen. Elise heard girls whispering behind her when she was alone. Max was pushed down the stairs, though no one was near. Their dog, a placid old Labrador, refused to enter the room. Once they found him shaking violently just outside the door, tail between his legs, urine puddling beneath him. 3 separate times, the wallpaper reappeared. They would go to bed with the wood panelling exposed and wake to find perfectly restored floral wallpaper, no seam visible. Not glued, not hung, just there, like it had never been removed. They brought in a priest, then a medium. Both left within minutes of entering the room. The priest said nothing, just made a sign of the cross and walked away. The medium reportedly wept and said, "They're still waiting for their names to be called. You uncovered the roll call." On the final night, Elise woke to find the door wide open and the room filled with what she described as blue light and breathing. She said it wasn't her breathing. It came from under the floorboards. Multiple breathers. Rhythmic. Like a dormitory of invisible chests rising and falling together. They moved out the next day. Max didn't even finish packing the tools. The house was sold at a loss. It's sat empty since 2019, occasionally visited by photographers, ghost hunters, and the rare urban explorer. One local YouTuber posted a video exploring the house. In the comments, a woman wrote, "My name is on that wall. I was 11 in 1967. I saw what happened to the girls whose names were scratched out." The comment was deleted 2 hours later. The Bridge Boy. Daniel Price was 17 when he vanished on a warm September night in 2004. He'd been walking home from a party in South Grafton, texting friends and posting blurry photos to MySpace, typical teenage stuff. He was last seen walking along the pedestrian lane of the Grafton Bridge just after 11:40 p.m. Then, nothing. No witnesses, no signs of struggle, no body. For years, his family left flowers at the bridge, hoping for closure. The police combed the Clarence River for weeks, but came up empty. His phone pinged one last time near the north bank. The signal cut out, like someone had dropped it straight into water. In 2006, a fisherman found a tattered school uniform wedged under mangroves along the riverbank. It matched Daniel's shirt, shoes, and an ID badge still pinned to the collar. His wallet was inside intact, but the water damage suggested it had only been submerged for a few weeks, not 2 years. Police returned to dredge the area, this time pulling out a heavy concrete slab blocking an old drainage outlet. When removed, they discovered something horrific. Beneath the silt and river sludge was a sealed steel chamber. Inside were 3 skeletons. One was Daniel, the other 2 were unknown, one male, one female, both much older and long decomposed. All 3 had been bound at the wrists and stuffed into plastic bags before being walled behind concrete. The chamber wasn't just a hiding place, it was a tomb. The story made headlines, and for a while people stopped walking the bridge at night. Then came the sightings. Joggers reported seeing a boy standing alone at the halfway point of the bridge. Always the same description: school uniform, wet clothes, head slightly tilted. He never turns around. If you approach, he vanishes. No splash, no wind, just gone. In 2021, a paranormal podcast recorded an EVP session on the bridge. Amidst static, a voice whispered, "Still here." And then another. 3 more. Police believed the other bodies were connected to 2 missing persons cases from the 80s. But DNA results were inconclusive and no one came forward. Today, locals refer to Daniel not by name, but as the Bridge Boy. They say if you pass him at night and don't acknowledge him, he follows you home. Just to see if you'll end up in the chamber too. Clara's Tea Party. In the heart of Grafton's heritage precinct stands a quaint art gallery with a cheerful white facade and polished timber floors. But before it housed paintings and weekend tourists, it was once the home of Clara Moffat, a widow whose grief twisted into legend. Clara moved into the home in 1920 after her husband Harold drowned during the infamous flood of 1917. His body wasn't found for weeks, and when it finally washed ashore, Clara insisted on burying him herself, right in the garden. She refused a headstone, claiming Harold didn't want one. She kept to herself after that. Neighbours would occasionally see her in the window pouring tea for 2. At first they thought it was touching, a woman clinging to the memory of her love. But years passed and Clara's guest never left. She began buying extra groceries, setting 2 places at dinner and holding long animated conversations with someone no one else could see. The local children called her Tea Party Clara and dared each other to knock on her door. One boy swore he saw a man's shadow behind her in the hallway. Another said the smell from her garden wasn't compost, it was rot. In winter 1931, a postal worker noticed a stack of untouched letters outside her door. When the police entered, they found Clara seated at the dining table, her hair matted, her eyes wide and staring. Across from her sat Harold. His body, embalmed in a crude homemade solution, dressed in his best suit and posed with a cup of cold tea in one hand. His skin was waxen and his face had been painted over with makeup. Clara had dug him up and brought him inside. She was committed to a facility in Kempsey, where she died 5 years later. The house was renovated in the 1950s and passed through several owners, none staying long. Complaints range from footsteps overhead, cold spots, and the strong smell of formaldehyde that seemed to seep from the dining room floor. Today, as an art gallery, staff report lights flickering near the tea sets on display. Cups are found moved, and once, during an exhibition opening, every clock in the building stopped at exactly 7:13 p.m., the time listed on Harold's death certificate. The strangest incident was caught on CCTV. A visitor browsing alone paused at a landscape painting. Behind her, a second figure appeared in the reflection, a man in a grey suit holding a teacup, grinning. Dead Cow Hill. To most, it's just a steep stretch of neglected pasture west of Grafton, marked by rusting fencing and an unnatural hush. But to locals, it's Dead Cow Hill. A place avoided after dark, spoken about only in whispers. The name comes from the drought of 1982, when a dozen cattle were found dead across the hilltop, seemingly overnight. But their deaths were odd, no signs of starvation or dehydration, no struggle, no wounds. They were simply still. Eyes wide, legs rigid, mouths open in terror. Autopsies were inconclusive, but the farmer who owned the land abandoned it, muttering something about black eyes in the fog. Yet Dead Cow Hill's darkness stretches further back. The land sits atop an ancient conflict site where colonial forces once ambushed a group of local Bundjalung people. Elders say it was a place of mourning, but the spirits were never laid to rest. The blood soaked into the hill, they say, and the land has never stopped drinking. In 2011, 2 university students set up camp on the hill for a photography project. They filmed everything, dusk to dawn. On the second night, the camera picked up strange distortions, heat ripples where there was no fire, voices whispering just beyond the tent. One student vanished after stepping out to urinate. The other was found at dawn, curled in the fetal position, muttering in a language no one recognised. When shown the footage, he screamed and smashed the laptop. He never explained what he saw. Drones flown over the area lose signal above a certain altitude. GPS devices spin. Compasses fail. Locals say if you walk the wrong way at night, the hill will spin you in circles until you're so exhausted you fall. And if you fall, that's when it comes. A thing with no face. Only breath and eyes like puddles of ink. The Grafton Ghost Train. Grafton once thrived on its railway. The station was a hub of life, connection and movement. But there's one service that never shows on the schedule. A train that roars through the outskirts in the dead of night, shaking windows, shrieking like iron banshees. Except it doesn't exist. The ghost train was first reported in 1967 by a signalman named Barry Lynch. He swore he saw a full steam engine blow through at 3:13 a.m. Engine number 5137. But 5137 had been decommissioned and scrapped in 1959. Other reports followed. Farmers heard it, workers saw it. One man chased it, trying to capture it on film, only to vanish for 3 days. When he returned, he claimed he'd been on board. His shoes were soaked, his fingernails torn. He died of a heart attack weeks later. An old conductor named Frank admitted on his deathbed that 5137 once carried a body during a late-night funeral service in 1958. The coffin was improperly sealed, and by the time it reached its destination, the box was open and the corpse was missing. The body was never found. Paranormal groups that have investigated the area report hearing bells, screeches, and footsteps crunching gravel. But the platform is empty. Dogs refuse to cross the tracks. Some say the train is still searching for its passenger. And if you're alone on the Grafton platform at 3:13 a.m, you might hear it arrive and watch as its doors slide open, just for you. The Man in the Orchard. Carrs Creek is a sleepy bend near Grafton, with lush fields and a thick, overgrown mango orchard that hasn't been harvested in decades. The orchard belonged to Elias Dane, a solitary farmer who lived in a tin roof shack on the edge of the property for over 40 years. The story goes that in 1943, Elias's daughter, Marianne, wandered into the orchard and never came out. She was 5. Search parties scoured every inch. No prints, no clothing, no signs of struggle, just silence. Boleus was never the same. He stayed, refused to move, refused to prune the trees. Locals said he would sit by the tree line every day, just staring between two particular mango trees. Once, a neighbour asked why. He whispered, "She's still there, but she's not alone." Elias died in 1989. His shack was cleared out, but no one touched the orchard. Strange stories began cropping up from teenagers who snuck in on dares. One girl claimed she saw a man holding a lantern, walking silently through the rows. Others heard humming, low and tuneless, almost mechanical. A drone pilot mapping the area noticed something unsettling in his footage: shadows that didn't align with the trees, long, narrow shapes standing still among the leaves and then shifting positions without movement. Urban explorers have returned from the orchard with stories of lost time. Hours passed that felt like minutes. Phones drained, GPS spinning in loops. Some claim to have found a clearing with dozens of tiny handprints in the dirt. They call him the Orchard Man, always holding a lantern, always silent, waiting, perhaps, for someone to find what Elias never did. Thanks for spending some time with Midnight Narratives. If tonight's stories gave you chills, give us a like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss a show from the past. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and whatever you do, don't follow the sound.